I think decentralization needs to happen. It needs to happen fast. I think people need to get out of cities. I think they need to go to more rural areas. They need to start learning how to take care of themselves and be self-sufficient. And so we got rid of one of our. We have we have a front lawn. There's a walkway dividing the lawn. We got rid of one side of it and turned it into a garden. So we're going to be growing a lot of our own food. Not nearly enough to sustain the amount of people who are living and working, but it's a start. And I think people need to do that. We also have chickens, so we're going to have a bunch of eggs at some point in the next couple of months. And I think having some reliance on yourself is really important. And getting off the grid. I don't mean getting off the grid in the sense of like disappearing from society. I mean having well water with a filtration system and having some kind of, at-home renewable of solar or wind or whatever you can get. And still being attached to the grid, just having the capability to survive on your own in the event things start falling apart.
Yeah, the electric grid especially.
Right.
Because right now, if one part of the electric grid goes down, they shut the entire grid down to repair it and take everyone's power out. It's not sustainable.
Or there's a storm and it could knock out your power, and what are you going to do? So I'm thinking about what we're seeing with the market. There's desperate attempts to assuage the fears of an impending market collapse and hyperinflation. And I think it's coming. I think we're starting to see a lot of the same signs. Far be it from me to tell anybody what they should do with their money. But, I've been talking to a lot of my friends who are, some of them who are day traders and work in investment firms. And they bring up, every time we see a major collapse, you start seeing similar signs of the media saying, oh, no, everything's fine. There's no collapse. Just keep doing your thing. And it's like, when they start saying this stuff, everything's okay. Go back to work. Mind your own business. It happens every time, and then there's a major collapse or some kind of crash.
There was a case I was talking about Christopher Mellon, who was just on Rogan like a couple days ago, and he told this story where, because this guy worked in intelligence agencies, they told him that there was a pending nuclear attack on New York and D.C., and so he had his whole
When?
I don't remember what year he said, but he was told from the inside that this is likely to be happening, and so he told his family and friends, but he said he was walking around sort of in a blur because it was surreal. He felt like he should warn people, but it would cause more chaos. That's why but that did happen. That's confirmed from the inside. They knew nuclear was a tangible threat, and they decided not to tell anyone because they figured
but
they didn't
a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
You gotta, if maybe Lydia can help look up the date, but
during the Cold War?
I think he might have even broken the news 2 days ago, so I'm not sure, but they didn't have full confirmation that the attack was coming, so they decided that it wasn't worth it because their level of intelligence wasn't guaranteed, and then luckily it ended up not happening.
That's why I think the preppers are laughing at us. Because they're like, you got these arrogant city folk who mock preppers. And it's just like, first of all, why do I care what you think about me? Second of all, when the water shuts off or the power goes out, like when Hurricane Sandy hit and the power went out in New York, none of these prepper people care when there's a hurricane. They're like, and? They got everything they could. They're good. They go underground.
Oh, the joke's on the people mocking. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're not prepared.
I mean, whether preppers, truthers, I remember when truther became a word that was like a pejorative. I mean, that's out of a fiction novel.
Truther?
I mean, granted, okay, there are some crazy truthers about certain topics, but the fact that the phrase truther is used as a pejorative is insane when you just look at it from the outside.
I'll tell you what's insane. There was that quote from Joe Biden recently where he's like, who needs 100 rounds? What do you think? The deer's wearing Kevlar? It's like, your life has been so cushy and soft.
Yep.
You've been such a spoiled, pampered brat because you do not know hardship that you're like, why would anyone ever need to defend their lives? Well, I guess you can ask the people in inner city Chicago why they keep buying illegal guns and bringing them in and buying them, because there's a lot of gun violence and they're worried. Some people are bad people and want to commit crimes, and some people are worried about being the victims of crime. But that statement from Joe Biden just shows that's the mentality. They've never had hardship. Imagine spending your whole life. I'll put it this way. I know a lot of people who never had jobs. It's crazy. 26, 27 years old, never had a job.
Wow.
Why? They went to school. They went to high school. They went to college, went to a master's program. Get out, 24 to 26, never had a job ever. So they have no idea how anything works. They have no idea how to get money. And they're just, adults at 26 who don't know how to survive on their own. Now, that is obvious. You can see that. You can be like, obviously, if you've never worked and never, generated income, you're going to be a 26-year-old with all of life's responsibilities out of school and having no idea what to do. Sure, they can teach you how to play the trombone in college, or they can teach you how to set up a nuclear reactor, but they don't tell you how to get a job or make money or set up a banking account or pay your taxes. And now you think about that and think about conflict and crisis. Not a person in this country, save cops, veterans, and not even every veteran. A lot of them are administrative. A lot of cops are administrative. There's a relatively small fraction of people in this country who have actually experienced any kind of real conflict. So most people in this country are voting based on the idea that everything is and always will be fine because it is normal to not have to worry about any of these things. It's normal.
Yeah, and that's why decentralization is something you're sort of forced to learn, whether it's digital decentralization or physical, with farms and stuff. Like, you have to get banned in order, or you have to know people who are getting banned in order to understand that you need to secure yourself and your communication systems.
That's why it's funny when I was talking about Contrapoints earlier on one of my channels. Contrapoints is a leftist who, if you look at her Twitter accounts, I search for free speech, there's just mockery of the free speech warriors. Now, all of a sudden, after one of her videos is age restricted, it's, we must stand up for free speech and the left must reclaim free speech. And it's like, my response is always, thank you, welcome to the fight. Please, your advocacy for free speech is greatly welcomed. But if only you stopped treating this like a joke in a game. And that's the point. People who weren't being oppressed, the people who weren't being targeted by a system, who did not know hardship, were laughing at those who were saying we need to be prepared and fight this, because they weren't experiencing the problems. This is the funny thing now. You can see something so plainly obvious. What do you do when the power goes out? I don't know. The power never goes out. If it does, someone fixes it for me. What do you do when the power goes out and doesn't come back on? What are you, some kind of dumb prepper? Okay, well, listen. You can keep betting on this idea that life is and always will be a golden age just for you. Or you can look at history and recognize, for one, golden ages come to an end. And two, the natural state of life on this planet is constantly stressed out, running, and struggling to survive.
I did play a game of Civ where I went from golden age to golden age to golden age to golden age for like thousands of years.
Yeah.
So it is
what was your strategy?
I don't know. I was playing on easy. Cultural.
Oh, get out of here.
It was cultural science based.
Culture and science.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were playing on easy mode.
I think I was playing on like normal, like Prince or something, above average, not hard, not super hard.
Well, I think it's the same reason people sit on big tech apps, because they have no reason to leave. I mean, they haven't experienced what people involved in these issues have experienced. They're not, real journalists who have experienced censorship in international countries. I'm talking about international journalists who are like, really getting censored by governments and whatnot. And so, you have to experience it.
Do you see this really great video from last year where someone from the BBC is interviewing the president of Azerbaijan? And they're like, your record on press freedom is abhorrent. And he was like, what about Julian Assange? And then it's just like, mic drop. He's like, you've had this guy locked up for how many years? Holding him as a hostage. And then you're going to talk to us about press freedoms. And she's like, well, I'm not holding him. Your country is doing it. So don't come to me and criticize me. And it's like, I'm pretty sure they have a very bad track record on journalism, so they don't get any free passes. But why should the UK? Why should any one of these countries or the U.S. even pretend that they're doing well? Now, keep in mind, I love when the left claims like press freedoms in the U.S. under Trump slipped worse than Somalia or whatever stupid garbage they were saying. What you have now, there was a tweet from this journalist, and she was like, I ordered a bulletproof vest that I need for doing journalism in America, and it was too small. And I was at one point kind of glad it was too small, that my bulletproof vest that I need for journalism in America wasn't going to fit me. And I'm like,
it's too big. She was too small.
She was too small.
Yeah,
it was too big for her. The point is, she was clearly trying to make a point about, I can't believe people in America would need to wear a bulletproof vest. What do you think the world is like? This is like someone living in a Chuck E. Cheese's in the Bouncy Castle being like, why would anyone need a helmet?
I get
We're in a bouncy castle.
You want to protect your kids.
Dude, outside is concrete.
Like, you want to protect the minds of children. Like, you don't want to show them soldiers getting blown apart and bleeding out and stuff when they're one, so that it warps their perception. But you also don't want to coddle them and not show them any of the terror of reality, in my opinion. I don't have kids. You have kids. You can probably talk better about this than I can. And I don't even know, like, how have you been navigating that? Do you want to talk about that on?
Yeah. Like, well, that's kind of what was interesting about when we all first experienced the internet. You know, you go and you find the craziest shit that you can find.
I remember like live leak videos, man.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, there's a guy getting murdered again.
Yikes.
He's like watching it and just like, wow.
I could rail off.
2 girls,
so
1
much
cup.
Trauma. Oh my gosh. Motorcycles hitting people in the head. I mean,
Faces of Death. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think you need to ease a brain into the reality, but you don't want to shelter them too much. That's for sure.
It's tough. It ain't easy.
Yeah.
But we have a generation, and we have what now, like 3 generations of ever increasing padded walls. So what's happening is now you have all of these urban liberals who, it's like WALL-E, you know, it's like the morbidly obese people in their hover chairs floating around where things are being done for them. They live in these big cities. You know what I got to say? There's COVID may have been really, really bad, but at least one of the positives, because there's nuance in all things. I know a lot of people are going to be like, it's controversial to say that there could be anything good coming out of something bad. No, it's that these people in cities are going to stop wasting, stop mass consumption, and start realizing that life takes hard work and responsibility, and you can't just sit back and let someone else do it. Because you know what happens when you do? Cuomo goes and kills 15,000 people.
Or your guard comes and murders. Like they say, like when people have bunkers and it's the end of the world and you're relying on your hired security, the hired security is going to come kill you and take the bunker for themselves. That's like part of the story.
What's the joke from somebody super chatted us? They said, on behalf of all gun owners, I'd like to thank the gun control advocates for stockpiling our goods for us for the apocalypse. Yeah, what do you think's going to happen when there's a collapse? I think it's funny too. There was a post I saw on Facebook, and someone mentioned something about, I think they were talking about like Dogecoin, and like the skyrocketing Dogecoin. You got to buy this currency or buy that currency because the dollar is in serious trouble. And then someone laughed saying like, you guys keep talking about some kind of like disaster collapse or civil war. And they're like, where is it? When's it going to happen? And the funniest thing about these comments that I keep hearing from people are like, where's the Civil War at, bro? I'm like, aren't you the people obsessed with the storming of the Capitol on the 6th? Like, clearly we're in the middle of something. The dollar's the dollar's in hyperinflating, but it's inflating. And the cost of goods is going way up. Now the gold lumber ratio is coming together. I don't know necessarily it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we're seeing a dramatic shift in the economy in general. And it's you know what the craziest thing is? We've been trying to expand out here. We've been trying to find companies so we can fix the barn outside where we're going to be doing events. We can't get anybody to do it. We can't find anybody. Lumber is too expensive. Steel is too expensive. We're struggling to get things done, and it's really, really annoying for me. But there's a shortage. We tried ordering new computer, new equipment so we can improve the people have been saying like the sound has issues on the show. We're like, we got to get the new equipment.
Right.
We can't get it in. Something is happening, and there is a shortage of goods and computer chips and merchandise and all of the stuff is going down. And then you have these dumb people on the internet hyper focused on whatever CNN tells them, totally ignoring whatever's happening around them. Man, I can't imagine what it's going to be like for these people when the rug gets pulled out from underneath them.
That is alarming. I mean, because as you know, you have resources to make these things happen. And so the fact that someone in your position cannot build out a barn to become
I've called like 5 companies and they're like, oh man, it's steel. It's hard to get. It's really expensive right now. And I'm like, can you send people out? Like, what do we got to do? And so even with like getting the website done, it's like it's difficult to get things to move right now. Even with like digital, with like software and stuff, it's just been very difficult across the board. And I remember like so one of the issues we have, the studio that we're in is the highest point of the building, and so it gets really hot. So we were supposed to get some kind of like wall-mounted AC unit that's ultra quiet to help circulate the air and keep it cool. Company just never shows up. Company doesn't show up. They come out here like, oh, we're gonna get back to you. They don't show up. We had more work being done. Company comes out one day, just gone the next. Just don't show up. And I'm like, what's happening? Like seriously, how? I'm genuinely
feels like
confused by
quiet
this.
before the storm type situation. It really does.
What are people doing to where the businesses aren't functioning properly? So I ordered a new machine for this studio a month and a half ago. When did I say, hey guys, good news? In a week, we're going to be getting a new machine.
Forever ago.
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember.
There's a chip shortage.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so they keep saying, we're really sorry about this. Any day now, trust us. And then we'll get it shipped out immediately and just Nothing.
Well, I was talking to a guy who owns a Ford dealership in Norwalk, and he was saying that they just cannot get cars. I mean, unbelievable. It's like you're trying to buy, the market is there, trying to buy something, and the supply is not in existence.
This is showing our softness and our like padded walls because it's not normal to have access to all that stuff like that. For
The
us,
golden age. Well, but right. That's my point.
We're
My point
symptoms
is
of a golden age.
no. My point is we know it. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
I've been watching this stuff in real time, so we are moderately prepared for some kind of serious downturn. And I think it's funny that even after a year of a lockdown, you still have naysayers who are like, "What are you, some kind of prepper?" It's like, bro, do you remember going to the store for toilet paper last year? Do you have amnesia? What's going on, bro? Are you looking at the price of cryptocurrencies? Dude, these things aren't just going up in value because people finally realized that they're a technology worth using. It's because people are scared of the US dollar right now.
Dude, if you were on a beach and you saw a tsunami coming that was thousands of feet high, how would you react? And I think that's what people are doing in society right now. And you'd have people walking out into the water, like their brains would break, their minds.
Actually, being out in the ocean is a safe place to be.
You'd take your surfboard and dive it and ride it home.
Well, you want to be hit by a tsunami, but when there's boats that are a few miles out when the tsunami comes, they stay. It goes under them or it goes past them.
When you're faced with the impending destruction of everything, how would you react? And I think these people are kind of seeing it's such a big problem that their minds can't calculate it, and so they just ridicule.
There's an interesting question. I can't remember where it was posed, but they said if you were sitting in a city and you saw like an ICBM coming right down, about to hit the downtown area from wherever you were, which direction would you run? And the point was that if you truly understood the power and the range of the ICBM, you would run towards it. You know why?
Because you'd be getting away from the blast radius?
No, running towards the explosion.
Oh, I thought you meant the missile.
Yeah, if you saw a missile heading towards your city, depending on how close you were to city center, you would probably want to run towards it. You know why?
To get vaporized?
To get vaporized.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could just sit there and get radiation burns and slowly melt and suffer for several hours.
By debris, yeah.
So I remember, I think the New York Times did this where they talked about the blast radius of your standard ICBMs, and they talked about the different kinds of missiles. And there's the initial blast radius, which vaporizes everything. Then there's the melt radius, where you would slowly just watch yourself melt in extreme suffering for like an hour. And then outside of that is the radiation poisoning, where you get to live for a little while as your DNA fractures and cracks, and then you just suffer for a long time. So I just bring that up to your reference about a tsunami. Depending on where you were, you can accept your fate and try and get it over with quickly, or you can run and try and survive. It's tough. It's hard to know what to do, but I think most people would just say try and survive always, no matter what.
But when you're faced with something where there's no survival is not an option, and you're just like, okay, there it is. This is it. How do you respond? Do you acknowledge it? Do you still logically try and formulate a solution? Can you?
Are you?
Or do you just break?
I think it depends on. I think
kind
it
of
is
a rhetorical question.
Have you ever seen that meme where it's a bell curve of IQ, and at the very back it's this like deranged looking person who seems to be kind of messed up, IQ 0, and they say God is real. Then in the middle it's the average IQ, and it's a person saying I'm an atheist, and then all at the high end it's a person with a gigantic brain saying God is real.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like that. I think a lot of really smart, and I'm not saying religious, but like a lot of really smart and philosophically mature individuals would see the sun exploding and the wave coming towards them, and they'd sit down and they'd close their eyes. Then you'd have a lot of really dumb people who would probably sit down and be like, wow, and they'd close their eyes. And then you'd have a lot of average people who would be screaming and flailing and ranting, not understanding what to do. The midwits, the people of slightly above intelligence who know just enough but not enough.
They know enough to repeat what they've heard.
I think they're smart.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that like not even countries are sort of immune to all of this, and so I think it'll be really interesting to see which countries adopt crypto and Bitcoin, because the ones that do are going to lead the future. That's just a fact. It's a more resilient infrastructure. It's better tech. So if they just ignore the problem, they're gonna get left behind.
If I was a conspiracy theorist, I would, if I was to push one, I would say that there's special interests that want a total collapse of the U.S. and the global economy. so that they could have some kind of reset.
Like a great reset?
Yeah, maybe like a great reset that just resets global
big?
capitalism with a new system. You would need a new currency. And obviously the authoritarians would want to be able to track every transaction. So they would need some kind of like public ledger, like a chain of maybe like blocks.
Where you put blocks
where
on
you
it?
can see each transaction.
What would you call it though?
Well, because it's a reference to like, computers and
Chain block.
Well,
Yes.
no, because it's a reference to computers, but also currency. It would be something like byte or like bit, and then like money or coins. Maybe like Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Bit
Bitcoin's
dollars.
a
Yeah,
good one.
Bitcoin.
Something like that.
Bite
Yeah,
dollars.
that's what I would call it.
So you create a trackable currency and then wipe out fiat and put everyone on the trackable currency.
Yeah. Then you know what everyone is spending at all times. Of course, people would try and create things like Monero. They would try and use alternative currencies that retain value because they can't be duplicated. But ultimately, I think Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million, and I think the reason it is because we need. The government would love to have this system, this global transfer of value that they can easily watch and everyone can watch, and it's the panopticon.
There are benefits to them, but that's why they're going to be launching their own digital currencies that are not Bitcoin, because they don't control Bitcoin is the reality. There are surveillance benefits that they get from Bitcoin, but they don't. Bitcoin empowers the people of the world. Bitcoin's much more. Bitcoin was not created by the government and conspiracy. That's a fact.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.